I've been collecting baseball cards pretty seriously now for about a year. I've learnt lots of lessons on the way, I've made plenty of mistakes.
All right. Mistakes were made.
And I wanted to share those with you to help particularly those that are new to the hobby get the most out of it. The tips I'm going to share aren't really just unique to baseball cards, they apply to virtually any trading card. So even if baseball cards aren't your thing, do stick around because you might find these helpful. My aim in making this video is to help save you money,
A gigantic pile of money.
to help you develop a nice focus collection, find communities and baseball card groups that you can join and trade with, and importantly, to have fun in the hobby. I've distilled the lessons I've learned over the last year into a top 10 tips, so let's settle in and get into it. The number one tip I have is to collect what you like. If you collect what you like, you'll never go wrong. Regardless of industry hype, regardless of the thousands of people who are telling you who you should buy and who you shouldn't buy, if you collect who you like, it doesn't matter what happens to the value of your cards. They'll always be valuable to you and you'll always have a collection that you can be proud of and enjoy. There are no rules about what you should and shouldn't collect. You could build a whole lifetime's baseball card collection off just one player. If I think about one of my PC players, like Pete Crow Armstrong, for example, he had hundreds of rookie cards across all the sets in 2024. And then when you factor in parallel variations, image variations, autographs, you end up with thousands of potential cards to go after, and that really could take you a lifetime and a lot of money, to be fair, to assemble. Whatever you decide to collect, it's really important that you don't fall into the trap of just collecting what everyone else says that you should. So there's one small caveat to that, and that's if you view trading cards as a business, as an opportunity to make a profit, or as a long-term investment, then you need to buy cards that are popular, which means you need to buy cards that everyone else likes. So it's important to make a distinction between the cards for your own collection and the cards that you might be buying or acquiring to sell on. Let's go on to tip number 2, which is to set a budget. Collecting baseball cards falls into one of two categories. It's either shopping or it's gambling. And both of these are really addictive, and if you don't set some limits, you'll go overboard.
Let's go shopping.
When I first got into trading cards and realised there was a near infinite number of cards I could acquire, I ended up spending quite a few £1,000s more than I meant to. So my main tip to stop you spending more money than you really mean to on cards, because it is really easily done, is to set yourself a monthly budget and stick to it religiously. Now, this monthly budget is going to differ from person to person, and it's not my job to tell you how much you should or shouldn't be spending on trading cards. But what you'll quickly realise is that without a monthly budget, the marketing machine for trading cards is highly effective. All the influencers on YouTube are really great at getting you to spend money on new products that come out at a relentless pace. So if you don't impose a limit on yourself, I can guarantee you will spend more than you mean to. Personally, after my first few months in the hobby and getting very carried away buying singles on eBay, I ended up having to sell a few other toys just to fund what I'd bought, so it's really easily done. And since I've set myself a budget and since I've started tracking my expenditure, I have reined things in quite a lot, and I feel a lot more comfortable with my expenditure on the hobby. I keep a very simple spreadsheet where for every card I buy, I log the date of the purchase, a brief description of the card, who I bought it from, and of course the value. And I include shipping costs in the value as well, because it's really important to keep an eye on shipping, particularly if you're in the UK like me. Shipping becomes a really material factor, and I'll do a whole separate video about that, but ultimately that still needs to be factored into the cost of acquiring that card if you decide to sell it in future. What you'll realise with keeping a spreadsheet of your expenditure is that even though any given card might be a few quid there, a few dollars there, it adds up really quickly, and it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
My other suggestion to stop you spending more than you mean to is to keep your trading card money separate from your everyday money. I've got a separate bank account that I use as my trading card account, so all the money that I make selling cards, I get to keep in that account, and that means that I can spend that very freely on cards. And I only put into that account the money that I'm prepared to spend every month, and that's another way of making sure I stay within budget. Tip number 3, don't try to collect everything.
Behold, I am the collector!
Baseball cards have been around for well over 100 years. There are tens of millions of cards in circulation. There are millions more printed every year. You can't collect it all. If you take just Topps, for example, they produce dozens of sets a year at different price points, and unless you've got very deep pockets and a lot of time on your hands, you're just never going to collect them all. So focus on what you enjoy, what fits your collection, and what meets your budget. If you're new to collecting baseball cards, my suggestion is that you start off sticking to just a few core ranges, and the best place to start is probably Topps Flagship, which comes in 3 parts every year, Series 1, Series 2, and then an update at the end of the year. Alternatively, if you like a more old school look to your baseball cards, you could collect Topps Heritage in any given year. Most importantly, Heritage and Flagship are at a sort of mid-market price point, so you don't have to spend a fortune building the sets, and you are likely to get some great parallels, autos or relics in the process. Tip number 4. Focus your collection. This really is an evolution of what I've been saying, which is that you should collect what you like and you can't collect everything. My first experience of buying trading cards was buying a box of sealed product. This is probably one of the most fun things you can do in the hobby, but it's not necessarily a great way to build a focused collection. If you're collecting the base set for any given release, then ripping boxes is fine, and ripping a couple of hobby boxes is probably the best way of building up that set initially before you start having to then trade your duplicates for whatever's missing. But other than base set building, the best way to develop a focused collection is to buy singles. If you buy sealed product looking for your favourite team or your favourite player, you're going to end up disappointed, and you're going to end up with a lot of cards that just don't fit your collection but that cost you a lot of money to open. I think the best way of building a focused collection and saving yourself money and making sure you don't go over budget is to maintain a wish list.
You just made my list.
So like our spreadsheet where we're tracking baseball card expenditure, have another spreadsheet that's got a list of the cards that you really want and that fit your collection. They might be, for example, the rainbow of parallels for your favourite player in their rookie year, or they might be every card from a team set from a certain release. Without a wish list, it's too easy just to see cards come up for sale and go, oh yeah, that's cool, I'm going to buy it. And then before you know it, you've spent loads of money, you've got a load of cards in your collection that don't really fit, and over time you'll think, actually I don't really want these anymore, and you'll end up having to sell them. Tip number 5. Timing purchases is important.
Time is your greatest enemy.
There are certain points in the season or the calendar year where cards are just going to be more expensive. This is particularly noticeable around new product launches. So if you go and try and buy singles from a brand new product relaunch on eBay just days after it's launched, you're going to end up paying a lot more than when the hype for that product has died down in a few months' time. And trust me, the cards will still be available, they'll come back up for sale, you'll just buy them at a fraction of the price if you leave it a few months until the next products come out and everyone's forgotten about that one. The other thing to consider is that if one of your favourite players is on a hot streak, that's exactly the time when everyone else is interested in them. So even people that may not historically have collected that player, if that player is suddenly performing really well, everyone will flock to those cards, it will push the value up, and if you collect that player, that is not the time to buy. Going back to my Pete Crow Armstrong example, I bought loads of PCA's cards in the off-season when he was pretty cheap. Now, I did get lucky because he has had an absolutely stellar season that exceeded my expectations.
So hot right now.
There are PCA cards I bought in January that have risen 200% since then. That's crazy. Tempted though I am to rush out and buy more cards while he's on a hot streak and it's all very exciting, I'd be mad to do it because I'm going to spend a huge amount of money. And guess what? Players inevitably go through slumps. Another player will come along that will steal the attention, people will move to that player, the hype will follow other trends, and eventually interest in PCA will die down a little bit and his values will come down. That's the time to go and buy them, not while everyone else is flooding there. So definitely try not to buy singles around product releases or when players are on hot streaks. Tip number 6 is to trade your trading cards. They're called trading cards for a reason, and I think a lot of people have got way too hung up on selling cards, and there aren't enough people around these days that are actually swapping cards with each other. There is a lot of focus on the monetary value of cards at the moment, and there's a lot of people trying to make a business out of trading cards. My advice is that if you can make a trade happen, don't get too fixated on monetary value. Ultimately, these are just pieces of cardboard. They're only worth as much as anyone is willing to pay for them at any given time, and that if you can swap one piece of cardboard you don't want for another that you do, that's a great trade. It's really important to find a community of people that you can trade cards with. A great place to start is of course your local card shop, so there'll be like-minded people there and it's a great place to find people to trade with. If you don't have a local card shop, which is certainly the case for me because we don't tend to have many of them in the UK, I've had to go online to find communities, and we've got a great Facebook community in the UK that's really active with people trading and selling cards, swapping base to complete sets, and just generally being really helpful for each other. Go and search out those communities, go and find people to trade with, and it's a really important part of the hobby. Another great way of meeting people to trade with is to go to card shows. So if you've got a card show near you, definitely make an effort to go check that out. You may find some really interesting stuff for your PC, and you'll get to meet traders and other people in the hobby as well. As part of becoming a trusted member of a community, it's really important to be realistic and to be respectful on price and values as well. We all of course want a bargain on the cards we buy, but don't lowball people. If they've said they're open to offers, familiarise yourself with the card's price history and make a reasonable offer. You know, a 10% reduction is probably a good place to start. Try 15 maybe, but don't go ridiculously low because it just wastes their time and yours. Similarly, if you're selling cards, don't price things unrealistically. Again, familiarise yourself with recent sale prices. by all means list it for 10% more than a recent sale, and eventually you'll meet in the middle somewhere. Tip number 7, protect your collection. If you put all of your cards in boxes, I can guarantee that you'll never look at them. Think about how you're going to organise your collection in a way that's going to protect your cards, but also enable you to enjoy them. There's no hard and fast rules about this, so I'll just share what I do. I keep my favourite cards in a display case in my office, and I love having them on display. I love being able to share them with friends when they come round. Typically, any numbered card I get, or short print, or autograph or relic, I'll put in a penny sleeve and a top loader, and that's the most standard way of protecting cards. Any of these cards that I've put in top loaders that I'm also going to keep for my personal collection, I've got a top loader binder. The one I use is actually made by a company called Gem Loader, but there's loads of different brands out there. And having them in a binder means that I can flick through them and I can enjoy them, but I know that they're also well protected. Any cards that I've top loaded that aren't for my PC, I put in a separate binder, and that's my trade binder. And I'll come on to why it's important to keep a trade binder a bit later in this video. For any cards that aren't numbered or have relics or autos, but that I want to keep for my PC, I'll tend to penny sleeve them, and then I'll put them in another binder that's just for sleeve cards. And also I tend to put my sets in these binders as well. So anything you really want to keep as part of your collection and enjoy, I would suggest putting in a binder. It does take up more space, but then that brings me back to my point of, if you've got a nice focused collection and you're not just hoarding stuff, you probably will end up having the space to have whatever cards you do have in your collection in binders. Just to immediately go against that advice, I do hoard cards. Any base cards of duplicates I get, I put into a box organised by team. Then I put all of the rookie and prospect cards I get into another box and keep those separate. And I think rookie cards probably are worth hanging on to, because you never know who's going to end up being valuable. And if they go into a box, they're usually well protected, they can sit in there, and who knows, in 10 years' time you might open that box and have something that's got some value in it. While we're talking about protecting cards, it's important not just to protect them for storage, but also to protect them really well for shipping too. So if you're trading cards online, if you're selling cards online, you're going to need to ship them at some point. And what you don't want is a reputation for being a bad shipper. So for lower value cards that I want to ship, I usually put them in a sleeve and a top loader, and then into a rigid cardboard envelope, and that usually offers enough protection. If I've got something higher value, of course I'll penny sleeve and top load it, but then I might sandwich that between two pieces of cardboard and put that in a bubble mailer, and then I know that that card's really well protected. Of course, if you've got something super valuable, not only do you want to make sure that you've sent it tracked and fully insured, but you can then actually get more robust card guards as well. So these are pieces of plastic that are specifically designed to protect cards for shipping. That's really important if you're sending graded slabs, for example, because you don't want the slab to be damaged. Be really careful if you're using elastic bands or masking tape, because you don't want those to actually damage the cards. Tip number 8, get rid of cards you don't want. Ultimately, you don't want to be a card hoarder. Cards you don't want might be perfect for someone else's collection, so try and move them on, either through trades or by selling. Personally for me, I like to keep a trade binder of cards, so any card that has some value that I don't necessarily want in my personal collection, I put in a trade binder which I can take with me to card shows, I could take with me to meetups, and I know and can see exactly what I have for sale at any given time. One of the best ways to get rid of cards that you don't need or want without fees is to just post listings on whatever trading card communities you're a member of online, and I find Facebook's a really good place for this. Selling cards online to your trading card communities is the best way to get rid of them, because you won't pay fees for other platforms, you usually get a reasonable value, and of course it helps cement your role in that community. If you don't have any takers, then eBay is always an option, but I would suggest being realistic with your price expectations on eBay. By all means, you can have a high listing price, but that's only going to put people off. The card is going to sit on eBay for a long period of time, unsold, and it's only going to ultimately be worth what the market is willing to pay for it. So if you're going to put a fixed price listing on eBay, I would always put a make offer option there. Alternatively, a good old-fashioned auction on a short timeline is also a good way of doing it. For my viewers in the UK, you're obviously going to have a tougher time selling cards because you're competing with the US, which has got a huge marketplace where they don't have to pay shipping fees. So you are going to have to be very realistic with your card valuations. Of course, if you've got something really rare or valuable, then the world is your oyster in terms of the market, because international shipping rates become a little bit less relevant on a super rare card. If you've got it, you've got it. But for most cards that are a bit more common, you're unlikely to be able to sell to a US marketplace. Another great way of getting rid of cards, if you've got a lot to sell, is to go and set up a table at a local card show. That's a great way of meeting people as well. It's a great way of building community. The caveat is that that's a bit more viable in the US than it is in the UK because of just the audience size. You will find with most card shows in the UK that the baseball offering and audience for those cards is pretty small, but it is growing. Tip number 9 is to share your collection. Personally, I don't see that there's any point in building and hoarding a collection that sits in boxes on a shelf and that no one ever gets to enjoy. I believe that cards are made to be seen and made to be shared, so find ways to share your collection with other people. One of the easiest ways of sharing your collection with a global audience is on platforms like Instagram. So I've started an Instagram channel to sit alongside this where I share my PC, and I've been really surprised by the response I got. I tend to try and theme my posts, so recently I've been doing, for example, PCA a day, where I've posted a Pete Crow Armstrong card from my collection every day for a month, and people have really reacted to that, and I've seen my follower base grow and grow and grow, and it always surprises me how many people are interested in other people's collection. As people have followed me, I've then visited their profiles and seen their collections, and it's a great way to find out about new cards or sets and just see examples of cards you might want to acquire yourself one day. And by sharing your collection, you can inspire people to get into the hobby themselves, which I think is only a good thing. So we're finally there. My 10th top tip is to have fun.
It could be fun, I guess.
I think if you follow some of the suggestions in this video, you probably will have fun. This wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list. This is just my experience of my first year of getting in quite deep into the trading card hobby and some of the things that I've learned about the hobby and the industry. If you've got some advice or tips that I haven't covered in this video, by all means share them in the comments so that we can all learn from them. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like it. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much for watching.